got Peter Brookes from the Heritage Foundation with us today. It's Heritage Day here on the Fred Thompson Show. Peter's been on with us before, and he's a prolific writer, and is always completely right on. I know where Fred is. How are you, Peter?
Good to be with you.
Thanks for taking the time today. I know you're also on the China Commission.
That's right. Yeah, we're in annual report writing meetings right now, so thank you for saving me from some of that.
Yeah, actually, I told Fred that you were in that. He's like, well, he'll want to get out of that. So talk to me about what you think about what's going on in Afghanistan. I know you wrote on it today.
Yeah, no, there's a lot going on actually in Washington here. There's a lot of confusion within the administration, within the Obama administration. Seems like they had a meeting back in March, decided how they were going to go forward, but when people left the meeting, they weren't sure on the definitions of what they were really doing, whether we were pursuing a counterterrorism strategy or a counterinsurgency strategy. And Jerry, as you know, there's a big difference between the two. The counterterrorism strategy is basically going after the likes of Al-Qaeda. But a counterinsurgency strategy would be dealing with the Taliban and ensuring that the people are protected. And the military and the civilian advisors to President Obama walked away from that meeting in March having different impressions about it, or at least that's what I'm hearing, and that's what's led to the confusion here. General McChrystal, our Afghan commander, came back and said, hey, I need 40,000 troops. And the White House, I think, was quite surprised, saying, hey, I thought you were going to do what you were going to do with what you had, and we were going to get you some civilian folks and some reconstruction money and stuff along that side. So right now they're trying to hash this out exactly where they're going to go. You've
been following this kind of stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
What do you think the chances of people leaving the meeting without having direct instructions, shall we say?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think the chances are that, the fact that they're willing to risk looking befuddled and confused, that must be better than what the alternative is?
Well, it seems like that covers a lot of what they've been doing here in the Obama administration, quite frankly, on domestic and foreign policy. They can't, the problem is if you can't decide what the definitions are, you can't decide the strategy or the resources, and you can't decide how you should move forward, especially on the very important issue of troops. And I think, General McChrystal put something on the president's desk in August. I think that, surprised them tremendously. And I think right now what I'm really worried about is that we're going to get something like McChrystal Light. The president, I don't think, really wants to put more troops in Afghanistan. His vice president, Joe Biden, certainly doesn't. And what I'm worried about is they're going to saw the war baby in half and we're going to get, basically half a victory, which in my book is a tie. And when you're talking about the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, the tie goes to the home team. So I'm really worried because, we have, Jerry and Eric, we have brave young men and women shedding blood, sweat, and tears in the sands of Afghanistan right now, and we got to give them what they need to bring home a winner.
Well, Peter, let me ask you this. In the northwest province of Pakistan, you've got 1.5 million Afghan refugees, half of whom were born and have lived all their lives in Pakistan but are still tied to Afghanistan.
Yep.
If we don't do what McChrystal wants, which even the NATO Secretary General Rasmussen says is the best plan to do, that's going to spill over into Pakistan, where you have a very weak government that's on the verge of collapse. And those people hate India, both of whom have nukes. And
Yep.
if you've got a bunch of Taliban guys who are happy to lead a religious crusade, this thing could explode.
Well, Eric, you're absolutely right. I think you've touched on all the important points there. If you end up with Talibanistan in Afghanistan, now where we're seeing the Taliban use Pakistan for rest, relaxation, and training and recruiting to launch efforts into Afghanistan, you're going to have the same sort of thing, the reverse image of that, where they're going to use Afghanistan to go against the central government in Pakistan. Most people don't realize this, but the Taliban is not very popular in Afghanistan, but it is quite popular in Pakistan. And we all remember some of the things that have happened over there with other Islamist terrorist groups, such as the assassination of Benazir Bhutto. This is a government that is under siege in Pakistan, and we've had some success recently in Pakistan because they got serious about it. They went, the Taliban was within 60 miles of the capital of Islamabad this summer. People don't realize that. Some were saying that the government would fall. That would mean the fact that, that these nuclear weapons could fall into the hands of some really, really bad people. That would be bad. And you're right. Another interesting thing is India. India, right next door, which has had a very tortured, tough relationship with Pakistan since their separation in 1947, is also a nuclear power. superpower, and they've had terrorist attacks. Remember the Mumbai attack last Thanksgiving, which originated in Pakistan. There's a tremendous amount of tension, and if you want to see a place where you're most likely to see nuclear weapons exchange for the first time, it's going to be on the South Asian continent. And if it falls in the hands of the Taliban, who most analysts today tell me is indistinguishable in many ways from Al-Qaeda, you got real problems on your hands.
Well, we're dealing with, I did not realize until this morning, I was doing show prep, I did not realize that Pakistan has grown to the sixth most populous nation on earth, and India at number 2. This could be really bloody. They've already got this problem fighting over Kashmir, and I mean, if the Obama administration doesn't engage properly like they need to, like McChrystal wants them to, I mean, we could really be looking at something ugly.
And also, the first thing I always tell people, I work on national security all the time. I kind of have this world map in my head. But when I always tell people the first thing to do when you start looking at geopolitics, geostrategy, is to look at a map. And if you look at that map, you see Afghanistan, you see Pakistan, a country of 160 million people. In fact, I think it's the second most populous Muslim country in the world, following Indonesia. 160 million. You've got over a billion in India next door. You've got Afghanistan. You've got Iran, which also borders Afghanistan, which is very concerned about what is happening there. In fact, they're supporting the Taliban, even though during the 1990s, Iran and the Taliban were sworn enemies, one being Shia, one being Sunni. But today, it seems like they're working together to go against the United States and coalition forces. So there's, and you even go back further historically, to the great game of the 1800s where the British and Russians were interested. I think you could see the Russians interested. The Chinese are obviously very interested because they're worried about the Talibanization of that part of the world, then moving into Central Asia, which borders China. And as you know, the western part of China has a large number of Chinese Muslims as well. So this is a serious thing. And what's most interesting to me, Jerry and Eric, is the fact that a weak country such as Afghanistan, in fact, some people say going around Afghanistan, you feel like you're back in the Old Testament. I mean, this is a country that really is underdeveloped, maybe fourth or fifth world. But a weak country like this can actually have a tremendous effect on your national security. I mean, we tend to, in the security field, we tend to look at, big powers, Russia, China, North Korea with missiles, things along this way. But matter of fact, a weak country like this, a lawless country like this that could harbor terrorists could actually have a major effect, just like 9/11 here in the United States.
One assassination started World War I.
That's right.
And and any weak or small country, that's in quotations, that has a nuclear bomb, obviously, is as big as anybody else. Thank you so much, Peter. Great to hear from you.